I'm Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of today's newsletter is going to be premature relationship ejection. Not ejaculation, but ejection. I've got an email here from a viewer. He started dating a woman. I guess he didn't really perform too greatly in the bedroom the first time. And this girl was really into him at first. And then because he became really self-conscious about it and then constantly started apologizing to her and talking about redeeming himself. She stayed over. He ended up redeeming himself the next morning, but the worst thing he fucked up is he continued to apologize over the next several days and kept bringing it up. And I talk about this in the book. Think about it. When you talk to a woman or you say something to a woman, whatever you make her feel and during that discussion is what she's going to associate with you. And this girl really liked this guy at first, but because he kept apologizing for something really that wasn't that big a deal, but he made it a big deal, then it caused her to start backing away because he basically started communicating, I'm not worthy, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm not adequate enough, I don't feel adequate enough, and I don't feel good enough for you, and I think you're probably going to blow me off for some other guy who's better in the bedroom than I am. And eventually she starts to go, I don't know, I was really into this guy at first. I thought I had a lot of chemistry, but I should be feeling something more than I'm feeling, and I'm not. And therefore she backs up and backs away. So I got a quote that I wrote, and then we're going to go through his email and see where he went wrong and what he can do to fix things. And the quote says, women tend to take little problems and sometimes get so emotionally wrapped up in them that they make problems or challenges seem bigger than they really are. It's a man's role as part of his masculine essence to take the problems and challenges that the woman brings to the relationship and shrink them back down to manageable and small bumps in the road that can be easily overcome together with love and communication. When a man can do this successfully, his woman will feel safe and comfortable enough to trust his masculine core, become submissive and eager to let him be the leader. If a man makes the mistake of taking little problems and blowing them up into larger-than-life challenges, this will force the woman to move into her masculine essence to make up for his weakness, not feel safe and comfortable, doubt his masculine core, and not trust him to be the leader in their relationship. If this happens, this also will cause her to shut down to him emotionally, lose interest in sex, and lower her respect and attraction for him. I talk about this towards the back of my book where I discuss relationship skills. That's why if you're a guy, don't just focus on the pickup and dating skills. A lot of guys tend to do that, and they start getting laid, and they start dating a girl like, I don't need the rest of this shit. And then, months later, when things go sideways, and the girl says she needs time and space, and then they start reading the book again, and they go, oh. And so this is one of those parts that I talk about in the back of the book that is part of the relationship skills that a guy needs to know. Because what this guy's basically doing is he's taking this little bump in the road, and because he gets all self-conscious about it, he blows it up into this big ordeal, and the woman's like, well, I guess this is a big deal. I guess this is a big problem. I don't know if I want to see you or spend as much time with you. She's not saying this, but this is how she's starting to feel. Because how do I know? Because of what her actions are. So he says, hi, Coach. I've watched a ton of your videos and have read your book. Read it 10 to 15 times, dude. Learn the fundamentals. You can't shortcut that shit. You shortcut reading the book, and you will shortcut the length and the duration of your relationship. There are no shortcuts in life. And a lot of guys, a lot of girls come in, they're looking for a quick fix. And the things that I teach, it's not a quick fix. It's really all about becoming the best version of yourself. It's harder to do what I teach, but in the long run, you're going to be way better off and be way more successful consistently in the long run if you're willing to do things that I teach. I'm beginning to practice some of the principles you teach, but not without bumps in the road. I began dating this girl a couple of weeks ago, and I could tell her interest was really high. I hung back, kept text for making dates only, and had her around a couple of times at my place, but nothing happened. Hang out, have fun, hook up. The hookup part is the man's responsibility. In other words, it's the man's job to go for the kiss, to make a move, and escalate things sexually in the bedroom. Guys that sit around and dither and hesitate and wait, eventually start to communicate that they lack the confidence. And it's interesting what she said. One night she said to me, "When are you going to stop being such a gentleman?" Basically highlighting my obvious inaction to make a move. In other words, in a nice way, she's saying, when are you going to stop being such a fucking pussy and fuck me? That's basically what she's saying. Be a man and fucking take me and fucking ravish me because I'm fucking ready for you to be a fucking man. You dither and you hesitate, eventually she's going to realize, this guy's a pussy, and she's going to totally lose interest. Things got hot and heavy over text, and we arranged for her to come around later that week and have sex. She came around late that night, and before we got to it, she said, "Fuck buddies?" And we shook on it. Come on, man. I mean, this girl must really be digging you for her to do, because most women be like, they'll just roll their eyes and be like, next, they'll be on to the next guy. So you're lucky that she had a high level of attraction for you to start out with, because if her attraction level was a 5 or a 6, you'd have been done by now, dude. You'd have been toast, and she'd have been on to the next guy, and that would have been it. You'd have blown your shot. But I would say her interest was probably 7, maybe 8 on a scale of 1 to 10. So you're lucky. You got by the skin of your teeth on that one. However, it was not great on my part, as I only lasted 5 minutes and tried to play it off. Tried to play it cool. Hey. Like Fonzie, huh? I did an article a couple years ago, and this is also referenced in my book, how men could have multiple orgasms. So, bottom line is, you should have been choking the chicken during the day, dude. If you'd been practicing what I teach, by the time you actually had sex with her, your dick would have been ready to roll, and you could have lasted a long time. But instead, you were too sensitive, and you lasted 5 whole minutes. But it's not so bad that you did that. Because, I mean, the more you have sex, the less sensitive your dick is going to be, and the longer you're going to be able to last. Even if you're in a relationship and you only have sex every couple of weeks, you're not going to be able to last as long as if you're having sex 2 to 3 times a day. When you get to the point where you're having sex 2 to 3 times a day, you can read the paper, you can flip through on the iPad, and you just keep going forever and ever and ever, and come when you want to. Repetition's the mother of skill, and it includes when it comes to sex. She was totally cool, and she told me to not make a big deal about it. She did tease me the next morning to see if she could finish me any quicker, and we had sex again. I brought up the previous night, because remember, women are always looking for a chink in the armor, and you already expressed the night before that you were embarrassed and shy about it, so she's busting your balls about it. Why? Because she wants your best. She wants your strength. She doesn't want you to be a floppy cock. Pun intended. And she told me not to make a big deal out of it again. He says, I brought up the previous night, and she told me not to make a big deal out of it again. After we gotten ready for work, I asked her if she was free in a few days. Now you're violating principles. Why? Because you're in a fearful state. You're trying to make the next date when you're still with her because you're thinking, oh, my performance wasn't really good. She's probably not going to want to see me or fuck me again. I'm probably screwing this up. So let me lock her down to a commitment right now for a few days, because in that way I'm going to feel better about myself. We hugged and kissed, and she said, see you soon. So he says, I asked her if she was free in a few days, but she said she had plans. That's why you don't ask a girl out on a date when you're still on the previous date. It makes you look desperate. This is obvious you're in a fearful state. You're obviously self-conscious about the sex thing because you only lasted 5 minutes the first time. He says, this is where I became uncentered. I texted her the next day for a brief chat and made the mistake of sending an, okay, we'll have a good night text when I didn't hear back from one of my previous texts. Dating is like a game of tennis. You hit the ball over the net, and you wait for her to hit it back. And he hit the ball over the net. She didn't hit it back right away. Now he's in a fearful state. He's worried she's going to ditch him. So what do? He hits another one over the net. He says, stupid, I know. She replied and talked some more, and then I left the conversation at her last closed text. The phone is for setting dates. Look what happens here. The guy gets into a fearful state, and he just completely fumbles the football. He's like the guy walking around on campus with like 15 fucking books in his arm. He just fucking drops the books in his folder, and his papers go blowing everywhere in the wind. He says, I there was this guy that I went to high school with, and he always used to walk around with like a giant stack of books. You know, he would never, for whatever reason, he wouldn't leave all his stuff in his locker. And one of my friends used to always fuck with him. He would go, if he had like eight or nine books that were stacked up like in this big stack, he would go and pull out the second or the third book in the stack, and then all of them would fall everywhere. And it was just in good fun, but the shit would fall everywhere, and his papers would blow all over the place, and it was just, I saw him do it countless times over the years, and it was just funny as hell. He says, I messaged her the following day asking if she wanted to meet up, Tuesday, but she said she had a friend over for a week, and shall we do it after? I said, sure. The following Wednesday, I didn't hear back from her for a couple of hours and could see she was online, so I sent her another text saying, I can't do that Tuesday anyway, and let me know when she was free. So now she's really trying to force it. Now in a way, he's trying to say, oh, I'm too busy. You're just making yourself look bad. Now you're just totally, you're like a pilot. You get caught in a flat spin, you start pulling back in the stick, that makes your plane stall even more, and now you're just. If you ever watched the movie Top Gun that was made in the, I think 85, 86, I think that came out, you see one of the F-14 Tomcats goes into a flat spin. And that's basically what happens. They lost both the engines, lost control of, the stick didn't do anything, and then he had to eject. And then the co-pilot, who Goose was his co-pilot, he ended up hitting the top of the canopy when his ejection seat went off, and he ended up dying. So sad. She said, no problem. Then I said, I have to make up for the other night. No. Once again, he's apologizing. You can tell he's completely run by his fears at this point. And notice what her response is. She says, what do you mean? You don't have to make up for anything. Be happy. Women help you when they like you. And she's trying to help you. She's saying, dude, remember, it's a man's job. It's a woman's job. And they tend to blow things up like, oh my God. And this is a little thing. And he's basically acting like a woman. And she's acting like a man. So he's actually forcing her to move into her masculine. And she's like, be happy. I was like, what the fuck? You're turning her off. He says, I blabbed on a bit more, saying I felt there was so much build-up and little endgame, then realized my monumental fuck-up and signed off with, anyway, enough of that. I just wanted to say have a good night. Speak to you soon. To which she replied, speak to you soon, XX. She had never put two X's on the end of a message, by the way. I just need some help on how to play this. I felt like I've come across as needy and sexually inexperienced when it was all going so well. Yeah, you took something that you should have never even spoken of it after that first time. I mean, because quite frankly, that's natural. You get together and you start dating somebody you really like the first time you have sex. If you haven't choked the chicken properly before your date, you're just not going to last very long. That's just the way it is. He says, I felt she led a little bit in the bedroom too. This is frustrating as sex is never normally an issue for me, and I'm seriously into this girl. Well, it's like Confucius said, success depends upon prior preparation, and without said preparation, choking the chicken, there is sure to be failure. I'm doing my head in, trying to resist the urge to contact her. What do I do? We were speaking every other day, and she always joked about when she's moving into my apartment, etc. Well, if she was joking about those things, I would definitely put her initial attraction at an 8, but you've done a great job of lowering it. He says, I feel like I may be building this up more in my head, but we were talking most days by her instigation, and it feels weird to not hear from her. Well, the guy that you see in the mirror every day, that's his fucking fault, because he started to over-pursue, started to apologize, started to act beta male and weak, started to act like an emotional tampon and vomit all over the phone through texting. So what do you expect, dude? It's right in my book. You do this, you're going to get rejected. He says, I almost feel like now in a position of who's going to break the text first because of the way we left it. I just hope I haven't screwed this up before we've gotten going. FYI, we were both in relationships about 6 weeks ago. Well, if the other guy's still in the picture, you're doing a pretty good job of giving her reasons to go back to the ex. So at this point, I would just wait to hear from her. And the next time you do, assume she wants to see you and make a date. In this particular case, I'd invite her over to make dinner together. Hang out, have fun, and hook up. And make sure you fucking choke the chicken in the middle of the day and do what I teach in the article, how men can have multiple orgasms. And then when you come over, you can be reading your iPad, you can be reading a book, you can be doing all kinds of things when you're just pounding away, dude. But like I said, you keep doing what you're doing, and you're literally going to talk this girl out of liking you, and it's a great opportunity. It's sad that it sounds like you probably read the book one time. You read the book one time, you don't know the fundamentals, this is what happens. You start going totally fucking sideways. So if you'd like to get my help personally, the quickest way is to book a paid phone, Skype, or email coaching session. You can choose any of those options by going to my website, clicking the products tab at the top of your screen, and just follow the instructions for booking whichever option works best for you. And I will talk to you soon.